Welcome to Flux Fantasy Fest. This event features a special OC sponsor from the Flux Destiny universe. These characters were created to participate in the Flux Fantasy TTRPG, and you can meet them and learn more about them when you join a game of their own. Let's meet the OC who joined in to help make this event happen. Say hi to Ace Redville, created by J-Dragon, a resilient member of our community. Ace is a lone wolf escape artist from the Izar region, now drifting through Andromeda City, chasing big wins and even bigger dreams. A former Wolfgang Academy student and member of the Clockwork Aces, Ace dropped out to pursue life as a freelance gambler, card mechanic, and magician. Using his escape artist skills, he's turned classic techniques into flashy, modern card tricks, always staying one step ahead of the game. But walking away from Wolfgang Academy wasn't clean. Rumor has it, there's a price on his head after he left without turning in his student Taurus, something the Academy doesn't take lightly. Some say it's just a retrieval order. Others say it's a test to see if he's worth bringing back. Either way, Ace keeps moving, never staying too long at one table. If you've had the pleasure of meeting Ace, let us know in the chat your favorite moment with him. Thanks so much, J-Dragon, for sponsoring this event. And for everyone here, we hope that if you see Ace in the wild, you'll go say hi and introduce your own OC. Say hi to Coyote, also known as Beast King, created by Beast King himself, Andres. Coyote is a 17-year-old escape artist from Solstice, practicing creative karmastry as a way to overcome his past trauma. As a member of Wolfgang Academy and the Makua tribe, his abilities are deeply tied to his heritage and identity. Channeling the power of karmastry, Coyote uses obsidian smoke and illusions to call upon the spirits of his ancestors, warriors and shamans who guide him into battle and preserve his tribe's culture. These ancestral specters fight alongside him, helping him defend, escape, and stay one step ahead of payback. He may come off intense, but everything he does is for his people and their legacy. If you've had the pleasure of meeting Coyote, let us know in the chat your favorite moment with him. Thank you so much, Beast King, for sponsoring this event. And for everyone here, we hope that if you see Coyote in the wild, you'll go say hi and introduce your own OC. Now on to the event. Frederick, can you hear me?
Hey.
There you are. How are you, man?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's good. It's good to talk to you. You know, it's been so long since you and I've actually had to have a discussion. I know how crazy busy you are, so I'm so glad that you're here with us. Hello to everyone out there who's joining. Welcome to day 6 of Flux Fantasy Fest. This is our last interview. Last but not least, I'm actually really excited that we're capping off with Frederick on this one. This is last but not least. It's been a whole week of interviews.
I'll try to make it exciting.
They're gonna have to put me on like ABC News or something. I'm doing hard-hitting journalism here. But it's great to see everyone here. We have other events at the rest of the day. Just be sure to go check out fluxfantasyfest.com. The other events today and tomorrow are there, and also links to all the cool stuff we've got. So anyways, I'm so excited to have my friend Frederick here. He's the founder of the award-winning manga brand Saturday AM. And he discusses the future of manga and the rise of diverse global creators. Drawing from his experience building the largest Black-owned manga imprint, he breaks down the pros and cons of developing an indie manga company and what it takes to succeed outside the traditional system. So we're going to talk about manga and diversity and what it's like to build this kind of company, which I have a lot of empathy for, Frederick, because I know how you feel with it. So I think we're gonna have a lot on it. So
yeah. So well, you know, hats off to you for doing this event. You know, I know how hard it is to put together your own brand, to develop it, to you know, create and maintain a fan base, and to then go and do something additional, like an event like this, where you're, you know, opening it up and having people come in and having conversations to be spurred about the creativity that your brand creates. It's all hard stuff, and I would love to see more, you know, independent creators get involved in trying to build a community, because I think with social media, oftentimes it's so frequent where the path to notoriety, which they think will lead to sales, is being destructive and trollish and just negative. To really build and maintain something positive is exceptionally hard. That's why very few people do it. And so hats off to you for what you're doing for Flux Destiny and how you put this event together. I just give you a lot of credit for it, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, you were literally at the top of the list when we were going through and putting on who we wanted. I was like, this is we've got to get Frederick on here. I was like, we got to talk, and I wanted to share your and there's so much that you and I have in common, and a lot of things that we could discuss together that I thought everyone could benefit to. So I appreciate everything you said, because it's true. Right now the world is dark enough as it is right now. We don't need any more.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people jump straight to the negativity because it's very easy for a quick reaction, but it doesn't have staying power.
Yeah.
People don't. It's very easy to destroy and to be negative and to whatever, but it's very difficult. But it doesn't have the staying power that building something positive does. And when I say positive, it's not just being nice to each other. It's like the concept, the type of content, right? Itself too, the themes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like themes of there's plenty of hopelessness to go around right now. We don't need to add to that. So right.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't mean for us to talk about this, but I think it's actually important. I don't know what all you've talked about throughout the week, but I think this is actually an interesting conversation to have, considering both of us and what we do. The law, Zuckerberg and even YouTube's platform right now just lost a court case, the first of many, I might add, that they're being subjected to throughout the country and globally. Europe has long been on the base of social media. Asia has shut down a lot of social media activities, especially from the West. And then Australia just passed a law not too long ago about they're going to outlaw social media under the age of 18 or 16, one of the age ranges. I think, what I've often said about social media is that while I think it's incredibly powerful and incredibly helpful for building things, the reality is that this is a weapons grade platform that governments use to obfuscate and create confusion and division. Bad state actors or rogue state actors will use to create conflict. And so when you get that into the hands, you and I are not young people. So when you get that into the hands of young people who throughout history have always been negative, right? We've all had bullies when we were kids in high school.
Oh yeah.
But when you give them the power, you know what I mean? The power to organize and orchestrate negativity, just lies and racism and bigotry and sexism and homophobia. When you give them the platform to be able to do that and really explode it, it's dangerous. And so I think that, like I said, and it's not helped by the platforms that frankly, they make their money on conflict, right? What I've described social media as is that, especially the negativity and the bad actors who involve social media, it's like a car crash. We all, if you've ever been in a car and you've had traffic that came to a halt, you don't know what the hell happened. And then you go along, and then finally you see the car accident on the side of the road. And you're like, oh, that's what it was. And then you're looking at it like, what happened? Did that person, was somebody get hurt? Somebody get killed? Is there any blood there? The police there, the ambulance takes money off. Ooh, they crashed the car. Ooh, that looks really nasty. And guess what? As you're doing all of that, you're now causing the holdup that you were whining about 20 minutes earlier. Social media is literally that, except it recognizes and accelerates your ability to create the crash in the first place. So everyone is involved in creating this sort of division, this sort of anarchy. And like I said, when you're someone who's just trying to create a story and have it be seen and have people, come to appreciate your characters, which, by the way, let's be clear too, there's no guarantee that can happen. Like that, the part of the other part of social media, the flip side of social media is that while there's an intense negativity, there's also this sort of false positivity. Right? This I can do anything, and it's like it's like listen, you can't jump off that bridge, son. You
Right.
can't. You'll die.
Yeah.
So so there are many things I think that are at play with it, and like I said, I think what is required so badly, events like this that you're doing. We do things like art contests, and we have a thing called Summer of Manga, and just doing things that really celebrate and really try to just create this community of people who are just trying to create content and love to see each other's content and love to see creativity at work and not get into the aspects of what should have been me or this. It's like just can we all just kind of appreciate the beauty of creativity, which in this social media and technology age, we're actually in like an incredible moment where people can actually create stuff more efficiently. I'm not talking about AI, but just create stuff more efficiently and get it out there. We're living in a golden age of that, very different from when you and I were kids. And so it's like I would love for us to be able to just kind of celebrate that and less of the, how am I going to get an audience? How do I get an audience? Oh, I know. I'll create conflict online. I'll demean myself and the community and people that I'm against and so forth as a means to being able to get notoriety, and then hopefully that'll then translate. Which, like you just said, it never does. It'll translate into me then selling more books, my own books. Like it never works that way. It never does. But that is part of the thing. So again, I just couldn't start this without giving a tip of the hat to you for trying to do really positive and fun, because I think that this is just so badly needed at this moment.
Man,
So
no, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, we have to pass around the offering plate because like the preaching is like good today. It's hot today because I feel the same. I feel the same way about it. And it's so. I was talking to someone else the other day, and I was saying, look at anyone. Let's. So you have different. Okay, let's look at different groups of commentators, for example. If you look at political commentators, if you look at critics, people who are critics, they make their lives off this, right? But the truth is, no one remembers them at the end of the day because they don't
no,
create anything. They don't
no,
create anything except division. And I'm not talking about critics who like legitimately do their work. I'm talking about ones that use their platform to demean and make fun of people and to use it as to just it's like you said, like a train wreck. It's like watching a car wreck over and over, and they create it's like they make a sport out of making fun of people. And you and I both know
yes,
how difficult it is, this work that we do, how much effort goes into it, how much effort goes into from the whole thing, from the writing to the art to the marketing and distribution. It's just so much work. And people earnestly do
yeah,
it. People like us are earnestly doing this work. We're not doing it like if it were I think if people really understood the amount of work that went into this, you have to really love doing this to do this,
that's
right?
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
And
I've been talking to my group recently. 'Cause a lot of young creators. Saturday AM mostly is made up of young creators, and I say young. They're all younger than you and I, right?
mm,
Like some of them hate for me to say young. 'Cause, like they're like I'm in my 30s. I'm like that's 20 years younger than me. Like
yeah.
you could be the age of my child. You know what I mean? But respectfully, because my team is incredible. But I always do find it hilarious when I talk to them and then other people outside of our group, because the thing that I think, to your point, that is, I think that part you said is the part that I think, and I don't know really who to blame for this. Like I said, I think social media is definitely to blame for a lot of it, but I think our journalism has not been great. If I'm being honest with you, in the comic and manga
Oh
industry, I don't
God,
think that
no,
that's been
yeah.
very. Yeah, I mean, it's because at the end of the day, there is this notion, and you see it in indie comics. There's a subset of folks, some of which are really positive, but a lot of which are just really toxic. That call themselves indie manga, or they create names for themselves and so forth. And like when you see these groups, the thing that always stands out to me. One of my people said to me a while back. They said, what's always interesting with you is that you tell us what you think we need to hear.
Hmm.
And when we look at the folks who troll and create division and make these ridiculous things online, they tell people what they want to hear.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the challenge. said, no one's doing this. So any of us who've done this and had any modicum of success is doing this because you got rich off of it.
Mhm.
This is not that type of business. This is not movie.
That's right.
This is not, you working on Fortnite or Mortal Kombat, right? These are comic books. These are the comic books, and manga in the grand scheme of things are some of the most expensive products to purchase, not to make, but to purchase
Mhm.
in an era when a young person has Tinder, Twitter, Netflix, Spotify, hanging out with their friends, going to get something to eat, DoorDash. A comic book that costs $5 or a subscription online that might cost three, four, five, whatever dollars is relatively expensive, right? Compared to all the other things. So you have to love this to do this. Like, there's no scenario where you do this because you think you're going to get rich. And I think that therefore, like when I just heard you say, I think that's the part that just, whether it's our journalists, social media, it just has not really been able to, I think, make nearly the impression that it should to people that this is a business that is a zero sum game. You can put everything into this and ultimately end up with nothing. Except the experience of creating is everything, right? The experience of just creating something is everything. But in terms of like make enough money to pay for the books you printed, make enough money to pay for a booth at a con, make enough money to buy a house. These are all things that if you're lucky you get to. Most people in space are not really doing that. And I'll just say one more thing. The guys in the West who are the North Star in this arena, right? The Scott Snyders, the James Tinians, the Greg Capullos, just you name it, Jonathan Hickman. They go to conventions.
Mhm.
They're going to conventions multiple times a year.
Mhm.
And it is extraordinary to me when I talk to people online, again, whether it's indie comics or indie manga, and a lot of them are, because so much of their life is built online, that they're like, oh, I don't really do good meeting people. And you're like, that's not how this works. Like, that is not how this
Oh,
works. You actually have to
yeah.
get out there. You know what I mean? You got
I
to
mean,
get out there and meet
I
people. You have to
mean,
sell yourself, sell your books. Like, no publisher, you might think it's unfair that a publisher is not like, making your book the next hit thing. I get it. Trust me. And I'm a publisher, but I'm also a creator. I get it. But at the same time, though, like, that era passed a long time ago. Like, most creators get out there and promote their stuff. They go to events, they do things to gain fans, to make retailers even know who they are and want to carry their books. Like, they're doing stuff. And the notion that you can just live your entire life fighting online and that is going to somehow equate to you getting sales, that's just, again, that might work, but as you said a few minutes ago, that's not comics. I don't know what that is, but it's not
it's
comics.
not. I when I first started building this years ago, I was doing exactly what you're talking about. You had to go to conventions, and I still go. And I
Mm,
started with nothing. I had a little table and like a blanket, right, to put my stuff on. Like, it was very humble beginnings, right? But you meet, and I had a
yeah,
sheet where people would sign up for their email list, right? And I started gathering people and starting building a group, and you have to start that way. And you have to connect. This is okay. Let me organize my thoughts for a second here, because there's a lot. You brought up some really exciting stuff to talk about. Because here's the thing: what's happened generally in the entertainment space across the board is that because the internet has made companies like yours and mine possible, which is a great thing. But what it's also done is
mm,
created so much
yes,
noise, right? Because anyone can put anything out there anymore, right? And so
that's right.
it's
That's
become
right.
so pervasive in our lives that even the big studios can't compete anymore for the attention of something on YouTube. That's why they keep remaking the same stuff over and over, because they cannot risk it. They cannot
That's right.
risk doing that stuff.
That's right.
And so the work is
That's
on the
right.
artist. Before this, before a few career steps before I ended up here, I was the COO of TD Jakes Enterprises, so his media company, and I ran all his media group and publishing and movies and everything. And even as big as he is,
Hmm.
even as big of a footprint
Yeah,
he is, the publishers and everyone else, it was on us to do all the work. We had to do all the marketing. We had to do it wasn't like the old days where the publishers and the studios did all that. Now they're just basically distribution companies, right? That's all they're like, here, yeah,
exactly.
you got to do the work. You got to do all that work for us.
That's right.
And so there's this misconception. I think people have a couple of misconceptions. One is the idea that you as a like the old way of how things used to work, where it's like, oh, someone will discover me and then that's it. Like that doesn't work that way. It just doesn't.
No,
It doesn't work. You have to work so much harder
Yep.
now than you had to before. And but there's a lot of
That's right.
the flip side of that is the kind of control that you have now. Oh, did I lose him? Oh, are you still there?
No, I'm here.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. You
Yeah, I'm
froze for a
still here.
second.
Yeah.
You froze, so I didn't know if I lost you. The flip side of that argument too is that
Okay.
you
Yeah.
have you have more control and more agency than you used to, because before it was like, you know, when I used to, for example, at other studios, when I was head of original anime at Funimation, as the studio, we had a lot of control because
Yeah.
we were the ones funding the shows and everything, and so we obviously had control of the marketing and everything. But us as independent creators
That's right.
now, we have way more control of things. So, and that means that we can do things unedited or more in our voice, right? And so I imagine that bridges into why
Yeah.
you founded Saturday AM.
Look at that. Look at you. What a great segue, Chris.
Watch out. See, I'm a pro. Hey, I've been doing this all week, man. I've been doing this all week. I'm very good at this
I'm
now.
ready to say, I'm like, man, he pulled that together. Great.
Watch out. Watch out.
Yeah, man. Like the radio better watch out for you. Yeah. Yeah, no, look, that's how we are. Radio podcast. Yeah, yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, I've said this a few times before in interviews, but like when I started Saturday AM, the entire idea for Saturday AM had been that, Apple had just come out with the iPad, and they were coming out. People don't remember this, but the Apple books were going to be for, like, it was not ebooks, it was better, right? It's Apple, so it's not this, it's that, it's better, right? And it was going to be like a book that actually, had rich media packed into it, right? You could build it in pages, yada yada. So I had this idea. I'm like, because I came from the video game industry, and I had this idea of, that would be really cool. Like, I don't want to do anything traditional. I want to do something that's non-traditional. And I thought, man, it would be so cool if I could not only create a rich media comic, but if I could do it with, do it all on an iPad, right? And so our first vendor partner was a group that actually created created software to let you make comics on the iPad before Procreate and those guys came out. But yeah, I mean, to me, it was such a powerful idea because I was at this point. Kindle had demonstrated that if you were a writer, you didn't have to try to find a gatekeeper to get you into the door. One of my favorite people that I interviewed when I first started the company was a guy named Hugh Howey. Hugh Howey is a writer. He's actually from this area here in down south of where I'm at in the north southeast. He tried to get published for a long time, and finally, just when Kindle came out, he started releasing his books there. Horrible covers, spelling errors, but they were really good books. Now he's got a show on at Apple called Silo, and based on the Silo series, and he was making six figures, a month at one point. Because what happened was he released all these books that got rejected from every major publisher. People would go and they pay 99 cents for it. But then what happens, right, is that you're like, oh, 99 cents, I'll pick up 2 or 3 of these things. I like the idea of this one. This guy seems kind of interesting. I'll pick up 2 or 3 different series from him just to try them. And so he went from making like, $20 here to maybe like, $50 there to maybe a couple of hundred, then started making, thousands. And so, that idea of eliminating gatekeepers or at least reducing the role that gatekeepers play, who would try to prevent people who legitimately have talent and who are bringing fresh ideas to the market. That's something that resonates with me. I'm an African American man. Obviously, the idea of not having to play a game to be treated fairly is really important to me. So I was and still am very committed to this notion of diverse manga because entertainment in general. People might know this. I don't think most people do, but African Americans over-index in nearly every form of entertainment in America. Nearly every form of entertainment in America. African Americans, for people who don't know, the African American individual in America is 13% of the U.S. population. Yet every single category you could find for entertainment, sports, video games, manga, anime, we are affectionately a third. I'm sorry, a quarter, meaning 25, 24% to a third of the entire market. That's how big the Black
That's
experience is when it
that's
comes to pop
ginormous.
culture.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's
Yeah.
But then when you look at it, other than sports and some music, when you look at it though, you don't really see a lot of Black people there. You don't see a lot of them making decisions. You don't see a lot of them in the corporate office. You don't see a lot of them as figures on the in the content. And for me, that was something where I felt, I don't know why this is, but I do know that there's that weird dichotomy of gatekeepers who are saying, the idea is not really there, and it's like, is it really not there, or are you just like choosing not to want to work with it because you have the power to say yes or no? And then conversely, you have just saying, what, let's just do this and get more voices in here. Let's get lots of ideas in here, not just Black. Let's get people from Brazil. Let's get people from Denmark. Let's get people from Germany. Let's get people from New Zealand, Nigeria, Senegal, and that's what we did. So, manga is one of the fastest growing visual narrative forms in the world. Anime is in 87% of people. 87% of people around the world have access to legal anime. Manga is getting more and more diffuse thanks to digital services. Digital fuels the growth of anime, by the way. So anime and manga, if not for digital, the growth would not be there. I'm not talking about scanlations now. I'm talking about legitimate legal sources. Everything from being able to get your app, whether it's the Viz Manga store or so forth. Or Bookwalker, or the Shonen Jump app. But there's so many ways now. Digital is driving growth. Not to mention Webtoon is driving growth for people to have a chance to experience this material. They're falling in love with it. What the idea that I had was really basic: get the game out the way. I want to see if I can be if I'm a consumer, I want to hear what someone Brazil would create. I want to hear what someone from India would create. If the world can be excited about anime, which takes place in Japan, which most people have never been to and probably never will go to, then I'm willing to bet that I would have that they would have the same curiosity if it's presented well from people from different countries. Again, Germany, India, Singapore, Brazil, Argentina, you name it. So that was really the ethos of Saturday AM, was to try to take this really popular art form, deliver it in a very legitimate way. There are folks who call their work manga that doesn't look like manga at all. We really try to make sure we got close to the source with it. And then conversely, great original characters that you just hadn't seen before. Clock Striker, our biggest title, you know, you just haven't seen a Black female character leading a manga. You just have never seen that, and so we could not be more excited that 13 years later, the Japanese have embraced it, and then over 30 countries around the world have said, you know what, yeah, this idea rocks, and we like what you guys are doing. So still have a long way to go, mind you, but it's been a nice ride so far.
Well, but I mean, that's a huge, huge leaps you've made in that time. And what you said so many important things that I don't want to get lost in the conversation. So people can, if anyone's not familiar with your group, we're going to kind of cycle through them so you can see while we talk. But like the importance of, so a lot of old media, especially the old media companies, whether they were studios, broadcast networks, publishers, old legacy media type, really relatively old companies, right, that have ingrained, decision makers and things in there that really shaped what everyone saw for a long time.
That's right.
And what
That's
you're
right.
describing, and what I have seen in my own work and what I've seen from seeing other creators is that people have gotten tired of that kind of curated mass media market. It's just like it's tired, right? And people like the voices that are unedited, so to speak, right? So that they know that they are coming to, when they see Saturday AM, they know what your mission is, they know what you're delivering, and they know that it's authentic. It's not something being driven from, like, so what you just described in wanting to bring all these diverse voices comes from a sincere place. It's not something that's derived to be an insincere, like, virtue signaling or anything. It's like you want to do this and people want to and that's why you've been successful with it, right? And you're very deliberate about the
Yeah.
decisions. It's not just, oh, we're diverse for the sake of diversity. No, it's because you sincerely want to bring these voices to the forefront, you know, and people trust you
No,
because you've built that, you know.
yeah, no, Chris. I mean, listen, you're 100% right. And what I'll say is that, obviously, I'm always dubious. There are, as you can imagine, we've gotten, as a black-owned company, we've gotten attacked from black
Oh, I'm
people who
sure.
tell me that we're not black enough. White people who are like, oh, it's just diversity. You don't really care about these things. You don't know about these things. We have people lie about our our folks and everything. And so it's extremely frustrating. When you deal with this, there's a level of ignorance that just permeates all of that. Number one, as you said, like the notion that my argument's always been that diversity powers stories. Diversity does not take away from stories. Spider-Man is Batman and Superman, just minus the powers as a teenager. I mean, minus the wealth of Batman, minus the ability to fly that Superman has. He's got to hide his identity, but it's still the same trope. Hence why we have the Superman Spider-Man crossover happening right now. Those characters are so popular because of what they kind of what they represent. Batman is Superman minus the powers. He could die at any moment, but he's a superhero, has a cape, right? I mean, there's just so much stuff that when you look at diversity, it's really just taking a concept we all recognize and saying, how would this character particularly deal with those circumstances? And that character could be just the diversity could be just blonde hair versus blue hair. Someone grew up poor versus rich. Someone grew up in a single family household, or has or is an orphan like Harry Potter. Or it could be someone whose identity also has to do with their setting, their culture, their ability, whether or not they're differently able or not. Um, and so at the end of the day, diversity power stories, and there have been studies that show repeatedly that that diverse casts are more successful in entertainment. So, to me, like I said, I always hear those things, and I'm like, I don't know what fake diversity is, but I do know what fake populism is. The people who claim to be like, I only, like, I won't get into names, but you have the folks who are being like, we're anti-diversity, we're making comics just for comics' sake, but then they've got black characters running around, and you're like, well, wait a minute, like, what were you against that you're now solving, right? You've got black characters in your work, and you got white characters in your work. So what were you solving that you're now against, that you were against before, but now you've solved, and your work looks like it's like everyone else's work? So there's just I think just a variety of kind of nonsense that goes with it. But at the end of the day, for me, it's just about telling great stories. And for me, great stories start with, I want to know what's interesting about it. And if the setting is different, if the character is a character I've not seen before in popular fiction, then yeah, I'm going to be interested. I don't know who isn't interested in that, right? But spectacle still drives stories. Let's not get it twisted. If when I tell people who starred in the movie Inception, most people can't remember who started Inception. They remember the trains going through the city. They remember the fight on the side of the thing. They remember the idea of Inception. They might remember the score and Christopher Nolan. But if I told them it was, Matt Damon playing it, they'd be like, oh yeah, Matt was great. It was like, no, it was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
But the spectacle, Look, exactly. You were like, was it? Yeah. But it's the spectacle that drives it. That's what you remember. And I think that we just have to accept that we have to get away from this notion that people who are trying to tell stories have some ulterior motive. The ulterior motive they have is to get people to actually enjoy the series or the work, and that means that they just want you to have love a character. And if they can make you love a character that's different, great, because that's typically what I remember, right? I remember someone who just is a character I've not seen before.
So, in that light, why? So let's talk about Clock Striker a bit, and why that series has really resonated, and its success. Talk about what made that what you think has made that a success for you guys.
Really, I'll tell you why it was created, and I'll tell you what has surprised me about it. The reason it was created is really simple. When I started the company, I didn't have a mandate, right? I mean, we were a diverse company because I wanted creators to come from everywhere. What I knew was that I was not going to create a manga company and be able to have access to a lot of Japanese creators. Why would they come to me when they can go to 20 publishers in Japan, right? So I knew that wasn't going to happen. But I want to create manga, which is something that every kid wants to do. Has been that way since I was a kid. and I'm in my 50s. So that's not, if you were into manga back then, that's not new. But I was okay. Well, I want to create manga. I want it to feel authentic, and so the first thing was just trying to find creators who I felt could really live up to that potential. They understood how to do page layouts. They could really capture the spirit of manga, kind of like tropes. You know, the faces and the sort of things that characters do to evoke story. Manga is always very emotive. You know, the manga characters are very emotive. You know, anime manga very emotive. You don't see that as much in Western content because our characters tend to be more, it tends to be more plot driven. Whereas in manga, even though the plots might be interesting, it's very character centric. Hence why you follow a character from start to finish. So all that being said, you know, it was important for me that we if we're going to call ourselves manga, we had to feel like manga. And there were things that we did to achieve that. For example, we had a digital magazine where the stories ran, because in Japan, you know, everything runs through Zashis, right? They run through giant phone book magazines. So it was like, well, we got to capture that, because when you do that, there's a rhythm to the story, right? When you're not doing it issue to issue like the issue of Spider-Man, but you're doing it chapter to chapter, and they sit inside of a magazine with other series. You now have to really worry, okay, well, people care about my work. Let me jazz it up a little bit. Let me add this and add that, which is, by the way, exactly how the creators in Japan are. So, you know, when I created the company, I knew I wanted to have this diverse element in there because I knew I couldn't get Japanese creators in. And I found amazing creators right out the gate, like White Manga and Raymond Brown, and eventually got more creators in from there. Um, the What stunned me was that of all the black people who are making manga, very few of them have black characters or black main characters, and that just blew my mind. Like, you can create anything, so why would you not create black characters? And a conversation I had with one of them was, they were like, "Well, you know, it'd be forced," and I'm like, "Well, no, Naruto is forced. I've never seen. I've been to Japan many times. I've never seen a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Japanese person. That's forced. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that's forced. That's not real. That's fundamentally not real, right? That's a stylistic choice. Hats off to Kishimoto, who I love, but that's not real. That's forced. But a black person fighting ninjas, fighting robots, you know, falling in love in gravity-less space or whatever, that's not forced. That's just storytelling and bringing in characters to do the thing that every other character does. What I realized very early on was that was what you know as a black person who's fought for civil rights in my career and has been typically one of the only black executives in a high position in the video game industry. What I knew was that this is representation. This was the lack of representation and the impact it was having on people. They got used to not seeing black people. They thought there was something weird to see black people in anime manga. So I was like, well, then I need to change this. I need to change this because I know a story can exist that's as good as Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Dragon Ball, that stars a black character. It doesn't require them to be different somehow. They can just be themselves, be in a cool setting, and have a really, have really great characterization. So I thought, well, who's the most disrespected person on the planet? And while black men certainly get disrespected quite a bit, black women just rarely ever get seen or appreciated. I thought, if I can show young people a black female character who is ambitious, who's strong, who's a love interest, who's a hero, who has all these really interesting aspects of her personality, then maybe I can show them that anybody can be the main character. It could be someone South Asian, it could be someone Arabic, it could be someone Jewish, it could be someone indigenous. Anybody can, right? It doesn't matter what it is. I had a great story. Anyway, it could have been anybody. Cast the character of Clockbot. It could have been anybody. It could have been a white kid with red hair. It could be anybody. But I went with this for that reason, to see if I could create a great story and inspire. And then, of course, what I found, and I want to ask you if you've experienced this. What I found was that as I was writing the story, as the story was coming together, and as I started putting out chapters and so forth, she started coming into life, and the story started writing themselves, because I started getting fascinated by how she would react in these situations. Like, she would have her own view of these things, and I'm like, interesting, because this will shock you, but I'm not a young girl. I was never a young girl, so therefore I'm writing this, and I'm like, oh my god, like I'm seeing this from her perspective, and man, that's so interesting. Like, what I thought was going to happen here, the way she will respond to it is so different and it's so interesting. 'Cause I've never seen that before, because it is a young black female and it's not in Japanese you have these characters who you don't quite know if they're black or not. The creator never says. They don't really know what it is. They're just a darker skin, but they still look, white or Asian. This is a clearly, truly black female character. And so, yeah, so that stunned me. And what I found in doing that was that people loved her. They absolutely loved her. They loved the quirks that she has, a person. They loved the fire that she had. Because I wrote some scenes with her, because that's what her character told me, that she would, that she wants so badly to be a Smith, which in her world are like the Jedi. They're half engineers, half warriors. It takes place in a steampunk environment after a war with machines, which we'll probably be living at some point soon. When you see cast want this so badly, and she realizes that the system is set up against her, that she's not going to allow it because she's also disabled. She was born without a left hand. And she has this moment where she breaks down in tears. And I have so many people who come to me and say, like, I love her. Like, when, I felt so bad for her. And I'm thinking, like, well, I didn't plan for that to be there, but that's what the character told me. Because I know that a black woman in particular who has to be so many things is not allowed to be vulnerable. Sometimes they're not even allowed to be strong, because then they'll be called like an angry black woman. And it's all of that sits on black people's shoulders, that at any given moment, while people tend to think of us as this really stoic, strong people, you just feel that moment where you could break because the pressure is so much, the unfairness is so much. And that moment with Cass, that really resonated with people, white women, black women, Asian women. It just really resonated. There's another scene where she's getting her hair done because she is actually black. She's getting her hair curled. Her hair is being pulled out and being rebraided by her mentor, which is a white lady named, she's kind of like a badass Mary Poppins named Miss Clock. And Miss Clock is braiding her hair, and Cass is both kind of like appreciative and stunned. She's like, how did you learn how to braid hair? And Miss Clock is saying to her, sweetheart, you're not the only one with curly hair. A teachable moment, be like, white women have curly hair too. Those scenes just exploded. And so many people come up to me to rave about that character. So I wanted to give that whole context to say that, it started off with me, having a great story and having a great character, but having a great character because I saw all the possibilities of being able to have a character who was so different. But then, because that character was so different, the character started coming to life, and story started warping itself because the character was going to respond a certain way, and that way it responded totally changed just the viability of the series. And it's by far our most popular character at Saturday AM. The series is doing incredible, and we have incredible creators and incredible series. Apple Black, Hammer, MWOG, but like Underground, but like that for me has been the thing that surprised me the most. And I hope for young creators out there, something that they really look for, to be able to tell stories with interesting characters, and to not be ashamed and not be afraid to try to add more diversity to it, because that diversity, if you're being honest with it, will take your story into places that you may not have done. Again, if you're a white person, you're like, well, I really want to, I want to set it in a different setting that I may somewhat familiar with, but I'm not, I'm not of that ethnicity. Again, I'm not a young girl. I was never a young girl, but I was able to take what I know and then let the character just breathe, and then the story just took on a life of its own. And that's really what I think good writing and creating characters is all about. But that was the point of Clock's record, though, was to kind of bring this new idea to it, and it just exploded.
I'm with you on that. Just so I want to comment on a couple, because you said so many things I want to comment on. The first thing is that the process of what you said is like spot on with the process of like creating characters and stories, even from my own experiences, and me being someone who's incredibly OCD in the way that I just in general in life, but in the way I go about storytelling, is that I'm very like deeply, I plan everything out. There's lots, outlines and spreadsheets galore, right, when I do my work. But the thing is that I can have all these plans, but what ends up happening is when I start writing the stories, the characters do, because as a writer, you put yourself, you're essentially an actor, you're putting yourself in the shoes of the character you're playing. So you start behaving like them, right? And you start thinking like them. And that's a good thing, because that means that the actions and decisions, which storytelling is all about decisions, the decisions that characters make in the story are genuine, because they come from that
Yeah.
They come from that standpoint. So I know exactly what you're talking about, because I could have these plans and sometimes I have to like derail them because I'm like, no, once I get into the character's head and I'm writing and working with it, it's completely, it's like, oh wait, hold on. No, it's going to be something different. And you know,
Right.
the fact, I'm half Cuban, half Lebanese, born here in the US. I even though I'm like half white, excuse me, half Cuban, half Hispanic, half Arab, I look pretty white. And I
Yep.
thought that I had an understanding, especially from those two perspectives, about what it was like to be different, right, from others. And it was so funny
Mhm.
because when I was working at TDJ, because I was one of the only a handful of white people there, and it completely
Yeah.
and even though I was a top executive there, I was a completely it turned my understanding upside down of everything. And I got to see what it was like from a deeper level, what black people had to deal
Yeah.
with, right? And and the
Absolutely. Yeah.
struggles that black people have to get their own stories and content out was really apparent to
That's
me
right.
from that standpoint too. So what you're doing, what you've been being able to build with this, and being able to build these authentic stories and this is so awesome. This is what I really love about what you have been building over all these years and getting to that point, is that you, despite the hurdles that may have been there, you went for it and you built this and you said, I have this vision for it, and I'm not going to let people tell me I can't write this kind of story, for a number of reasons. Not one just from the standpoint of that, the kind of characters that have to be in it, but also, hey, no one's, what do you mean I can't write, this like you said, you were never a little girl, right? But that doesn't matter. You can write this
That's right.
character, right? And so I
That's
think that's
right. That's
awesome.
right.
You haven't allowed things to like limit you from what the world is. And the world is so fascinating because over the past um 10, 15, 20 years or so has gotten more into people wanting to put these rules. And it's like, bro, like I'm going to make what I want to make. It's like I want to
That's
make what
right.
I want to make. I've had people who were like, "Oh, but I have all these checklists." I'm like, "Just make what you want to make." Right? Like there's so many
That's
great
right.
creators out there. If you just genuinely make what you want to make, people will feel that. What they feel they will feel the authenticity come through it. And I think that's why you found this success with it, because you have been very authentic with the way you've done it and very sincere with your mission to do it, right? Is that all these, it's just
Yeah.
incredible. I'm curious, what was for people on the outside who see your journey but don't know what it's like having been on the inside, what has been the hardest part that you've had to deal with in the process of building this?
Well, let me say that there's one that's universal. There's one that again is unique because I'm African American. I mean, let's we have to be honest here, right?
Mm.
So I think that the universal one is just the struggle of trying to produce content and and stuff that you can feel proud about and feel like really is legitimately something that people should see. And that's hard. I want to come back to something you said a few minutes ago, which was that that you hear all that you and I, you hear the criticism, we hear some of the nonsense, and you still went for it, right? I want to be very clear. This is what I meant earlier. So this brings us back to the beginning of the thing. This is me segueing, Chris. Going
Your
back to the
turn.
beginning of
Your
our
turn
chat.
now. Yeah.
I think that I appreciate what you said. I think that again, this is what I mean about the press being very good in comic and manga space. We have to be, as you and I being people who are of age, who've had professional careers, have to be honest about something. Just because, and I go back, this is the famous Jurassic Park line. You were so busy thinking that you should, you never thought about that you could, you never thought whether you should. And I
Mm.
think that this is a fundamental issue right now in an era, particularly where AI is coming, where
Mm.
there are a lot of folks out there that don't have a talent for this.
Mhm.
And so it's different when someone is telling you, yeah, I don't know if this will work and so forth. And you're like, but I have experience in this.
Mhm.
versus someone tell you not to do it, and and you might not really have talent for this. Now, I'm not here to say you shouldn't do it, but what I'm here to say was that those two things are not the same. And what cannot be underscored is the fact that you had a career before you did this. You had experience before you did this. And so frequently I see people online, there are, I call them YouTube grifters, bigots, and trolls, because they all have the same profile online. They create these communities. They talk. They try to get you to buy their stuff, but in the process, they're telling you about the best way to make a manga. There's one guy I remember that attacked us a while back, and like literally every video he had talking about how to make a manga was Dragon Ball. The thumbnail was Dragon Ball, Bleach, Naruto. It's like, put your artwork up there. Like,
yeah, right.
Who are you giving advice on how to make a manga? You've never done it, and you're using other people's artwork to get your video seen. And the thing is that, and this is something I argue with my people all the time about, is the need sometimes to push back on these things, because what happens, and we see this politically, let's not act like we don't live in a world where ignoring people who should not be giving advice and should not be trying to set the conversation, ignoring those folks, being like, oh, they're clowns. That's no one's going to believe that. No, people will believe that. If you let it go unchecked, people will believe that. And then we have a society of people believing nonsense. And now when you add into it AI, oh my God, like we're heading towards a really interesting moment right now. And so I would just say that, like, again, like if you believe this, if you really truly want this, then go for it. Absolutely go for it. Give yourself a date. Even say to yourself, I'm gonna make a comic book, and if I don't have it done in the next 10 months, then I'm quitting. I'm not telling you to quit, but I'm telling you it's that type of thing where you have a deadline, where you have real responsibilities, where the threat of quitting really eats at you if you love it. Because don't love it, then trust me, it'll be a couple of times doing this, you'll be like, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
This ain't for me. Like, I don't like telling stories. I don't care what these characters think. Man, I mean, what do you mean I gotta like? What do you mean I have to like set up why this character's like this? I want to get right to the fight scene. Like, like I can't tell how many times I've heard nonsense like that. So again, I think that great stories and the desire to tell those stories and the challenges with it are always the same thing for people who want to create content. Is your story good enough? Can you make it right? Do you feel like there's an audience for it? That's a universal challenge. As a black man, there are other challenges, and those are quite simple. Black people in America and globally, but particularly in America, we get we get like 1 out of every 10 investment dollars. Think about that. Like 1 out of every 10 investment dollars. That means 9 other people who might be less qualified than we are can walk in there, have an idea, and get an investment versus us. So I'm particularly always kind of amazed when I see a person, again, giving out advice who has no experience in these things, trying to tell me how to run my business, or like what we need doing better. I'm like, do you know what I've gone through to even get to this point? And I have experience. I had a long career. I worked in the video game industry. I was an executive. Um, and so I think that, the challenges that black people face are, last hired, first fired, least to be invested in, despite our backgrounds in many cases. And then if we're invested in, and this is something I see particularly, and this is something that we're looking to address on another aspect of our business that we're hoping to introduce in the next year. But, is the notion that, then if you do get that shot, then you're compared in ways that no one would ever compare you, right? So like if Clockbot gets into a store, right? We're in Barnes Nobles, we're in Books A Million, we're in comic book stores. To then say, okay, but but you only sold like 4 units last week. I need you selling like 11 units. What sells 11 units? Batman. Why in the hell would you compare us to Batman? Like,
Right.
why would that be the thing that you're trying to compare us to? But that happens all the time. I can't tell you how many black executives I know, people who are educated and have a similar background to me, who have done big things, who then create something, and then like maybe they create a wine company, or they create, diaper company or whatever. And like then the notion is that, well, why aren't you selling as well as like the biggest multi-billion-dollar company? It's like, is that how it's done? Do white people have that same pressure put on them? In some cases, yes, but in many cases, no, right? You're looked at as being indie, and it's like, oh, well, he'll get there, or she'll get there. They've got an interesting idea. They've got heart. They're hardworking. So it's very different. And I think that for black people, we have a really different challenge. But regardless, at the end of the day, Um, the thing I would tell people to do is to research. Again, give yourself a test to see if you really want to do this. Because again, this is not for everybody. In fact, this is for very few people. And then likewise to as you and I start this chat with, go to trade shows, go do things that kind of put you out there to get experience of what it's like. I think when people see that there are folks out there who line the artist alley at your favorite Comic Con or even your local Comic Cons, and they line those artist alleys, and you talk to them and realize that they do this every weekend of every month, every year. That's how they pay their bills. You're like, yeah, but I don't. You don't have a comic book, or I don't. I've never seen you. I've never heard about you. And it's like, yeah, but this is how I'm making a living, though. I have to literally ship all my stuff to every show I can and try to sell it and do what I can to make rent, to make bills, and so on and so forth. And then compare that to the big guys, the guy like Scott Snyder and James Tinian and so forth, who are making the big books that are selling millions of copies, and they're still going to conventions because that's how they maintain a fan base. And it's like when you see all of that, that's when you realize that, like, this is a business that you have to love. You have to love. This is not a business that you can see a video on TikTok or YouTube and think that this is how the industry works. You got to love this. You got to research it. And one last thing I'll say, because I know I went on from here, is my biggest thing with people who throw around the term indie manga. This is not Japan. I don't care how much you love manga. I don't care how many people you try to talk to in Japan. This ain't Japan at all. There's a different society there. They love to support written content. America, out of most countries, is the least literary society. Not the most, the least. So the
Sadly,
notion that you're
yes.
going to compare building a business, yeah, you're going to compare building a business in this space to the Japanese. Oh, I'm going to make manga. I'm going to do indie manga. It's like there's nothing you can do to ever match what the Japanese do. The market is not set up like that. If you want it to happen, you better be supporting Saturday M and some other folks, because at the end of the day, until the market here is mature enough to support everything from Japan, stuff coming from Korea, stuff coming from maybe like France, and then obviously stuff that we're doing, which we've been pretty good at, then maybe the market will be open enough to say, hey, let's look at every content from everywhere. But until then, it's really hard, man. It's really, really hard because the market here is just totally different, and you got to know that going into it. Your wish fulfillment is not reality, is the what I would say.
No, I think that's really
As
important to say.
brutal as that might sound.
No, that's really important to say, because I talk a lot about, and I think a lot of artists, I had the benefit of my career taking shape where I went from, like you, having been not only a creative but also being able to be on the executive side of things, is that seeing both sides. If
Mhm.
I'm so different than who I was when I first started my journey, because I learned about show business. And what I mean by that is, it's two things. People think about it just from the artistic. Oh, I'm going to make them, and suddenly I'm going to. No, it's like some people focus solely on the show, like artists who don't appreciate the business side of it. They're like, it's the show.
Right.
They're so excited about doing the art and whatever, but they don't realize. And I've been screwed several times in earlier in my career, and that's how I learned. And then I ended up working for the studios and learning in that process too. They gave me so much perspective, and not only on the realities of the marketplace, but how to work within those realities to make things happen, right? And once you understand the realities of how the business is set up, then you can be like, okay, how can I be creative to make this work? And the inverse is true, because there are people who, and I've seen this firsthand on the other side of show business, people who are completely focused on the business side, who don't want to take any risk at
Right.
all, right? And if
Yep.
it's
Yep.
unbalanced the other way, it doesn't work either. Look at what's happened with a lot of. Or you can just look at a lot of the Disney stuff that's come out. It's like, if you are completely risk averse, where you are just rehashing the same stuff over and over, at some point you destroy what people appreciated you for and loved you for, which was your original stories and your ability to keep creating. There's only so much rehashing you can do, right? And so uh,
That's
comfort
right.
is the enemy of growth, right? We all like to go and like retreat to our comfort place. That's just human behavior, right? We want to be safe and we want to not take risk. That's understandable because we are built to be survival mechanisms in our brain. But if you want to achieve anything, if you want to grow and furthermore sustain and thrive, you have to be able to take risks, but take risks with the idea of both show and business, right? It doesn't mean, go crazy. If you understand both and can appreciate both, you can make decisions and go after things like what you're doing with what you've built. With that, you're able to take risks but still manage the business side of it because you understand both. You're not just going out there and be like, I'm going to make manga. No, like you get it. You get it from both sides, right? And that's what allows you to maintain,
That's right.
Build this kind of business. On top of that, the fact that you understand that you cannot, it's so easy to like people really like in our push button world where everything has become more and more and more like available at a touch of a button. Social media gives that also that impression too, right? Oh, I'll just make a post, bro. Like your post is gonna go nowhere. Like it doesn't. Right? Like your post is you have to go out there and like. And humans do when you go and do the cons like you're talking about, and like I like to do. You meet people, you make that connection. Because people are toilet scrolling all the time, right? Like you make that post, someone is sitting on the toilet scrolling on their phone, right? And your work of art just flew by, right? And they've gone on to something else.
Absolutely.
So it's really like, yeah.
No, I was gonna say just real quickly. I think first of all, I know you've had this happen to you. I know you've had someone come to you and be like, you know what you need? You need to have a cartoon. That way,
oh my gosh!
Chris, you'd be so much more successful with a cartoon.
Oh my gosh! How many?
And that's what I mean about just social media. That's just what I mean about social media. It's like that you're not an expert because you watch the stuff all the time. That does not make you an expert. Having seen a TikTok does not make you an expert. Making, like you said, a post once does not mean that you've got social media down. It's taken me a decade to figure out social media, and I'm only so good at it. I'm not great at it, but I've been able to at least help us build our company with it. But the rule I have for any new creator, and I just say this to everyone watching this, is there are three things you have to understand to build a fan base: consistency, familiarity, and trust. Those three things can be broken, and they're very hard to build. But if you build them, you can create a foundation. Consistency is that if you're making a comic, if you're writing a light novel, if you're making YouTube videos, you've got to be consistent. You got to do it regularly because people, once they come to see that you take this seriously, then they become more familiar with you, right? Because like you said, otherwise the doom scroll is real, right? Like people will see your stuff and go, oh, yeah, just go right past it. But if they see you constantly, and it's not that they even care about what you're posting, but they see you constantly, they at least start taking you seriously. But it's that third one, the consistency, that breeds that familiarity. Once you start actually producing some content that's decent, then you have trust. And once you have trust, then they will buy from you. They will support you. They will stand by you. They will stand the sort of nonsense and negativity that trolls and so forth try to do. They will be there with you because those three things are really hard to do. A lot of grifters, well, they might make a lot of videos. Those videos aren't about anything except how to make them rich or how to make you fall in their camp further. If they're doing something, if they're not doing anything that's significant, they're posting all the time, then they'll be familiar, but that familiar can be infamous, you're not familiar based in the sense of like, oh, this person's saying something respectful. I want to follow them, but that trust thing is really hard to get. And I tell people like, when you see people talking, like I said, they're making videos and putting other people's artwork on the thumbnails, or they're making these ridiculous proclamations, which again, if you're young, it sounds great, right? Like, yeah, just put your work out there and you'll get an anime soon. That's the goal. I'm gonna be the first American to have an anime. No, you're not. No, you're not, right? But like if it sounds good, right? If you hear you're like, sounds great, yeah, I'm gonna do that too. But the thing I always say is to watch those people to see if their familiarity translates into real things. does that familiarity translate to them getting invited to shows? Are they speaking anywhere? Do they, are they put on panels? Do people actually want to, do people who are part of the industry actually try to reach out and talk to them publicly, not privately, publicly? Like, what are they doing that drives that sense that they have something worthwhile and honest to say? Because it's those things. Do they have people, even, do they have kids and people buying their books at shows and holding them up and so forth because they're proud to bought it? Because all that's trust. All of that is trust. You don't get that without trust. And if you have trust, like I said, you can lose it, but you cannot go anywhere without it. You cannot get to the next level without it. And so that would be the key thing I would say. And like you said, I just think that there's so many talented young people out there. As easy as it was for the past decade for young people to get their content out there, which it was, I truly fear what the next 5 years is going to be, because, as you said, it is like a needle in a haystack. And once you throw AI into the mix, it's going to be brutal for a lot of very talented young people who have something important to say, who are going to get squeezed out, not because of any fault of theirs, but because they just happen to exist in a time period where, where there's a lot of noise, and that noise is deafening when AI comes into the mix. And then you have, a real challenge with it. But there are great people out there. The cynical side of me, and I don't have this, I don't want to have this, and I know you know that you, I do believe in young people. I do want to see young people thrive. And so the cynical side of me is that there's going to be some young people who suffer for this. I hope that the best and the most deserving young people are able to crack through. And if I can help play a role in that, and we're trying to create that, the architecture to make that happen, and you're doing events like this to help make that happen. But if that can occur, then hopefully we can continue to see great original ideas from great new voices. But it's going to be tough. And I would just say, for any young person watching this, I hope, if anything, that you walk away from this saying, this is much harder than I think it is, than I thought it was. Whoever I'm listening to online, they're just telling me that if I make it, people will come. This is not Field of Dreams. They, by the way, they've never even seen that movie, so they don't get the reference. But this ain't Field of Dreams. That does not exist.
I'm old enough to have gotten that.
Exactly. This is not that world, kids, anymore. So, so right now it's a dog fight. We have a lot of Japanese partners. One is working on something very big for us for one of our titles, and I can just tell you, like, that even when I had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago, even they talked about it's a race to be the first ones to do something that we're doing with them. Other companies are pursuing it the same. So it's a tough time, and I think but I'm so excited, because I think that all the negativity you and I have talked about tonight is going to breed great creativity. It always does. And I just hope that the industry is set up, and that people like you are giving enough, as you are, and I hope other people like you will do, and that we hope to build more structure and architecture in place, based on what we've done, to make sure that those people have a greater chance of being seen, because Lord knows this moment right here is going to breed some great creators in the future. And I just hope that everything is set up for them to have a chance to be seen and thrive. I hope that happens.
And all we can do is keep doing what we're doing and provide these kind of opportunities, because what you were saying is so. First of all, I want to comment on, you said the 3 words that I believe so true, like, that drive everything I do when it comes to, like, consistency and trust and familiarity, like building all this, like, this bridges on what I was talking about earlier, where there is this false impression now that everything is instant, and people don't realize that all these things you're talking about, all these terms, are they're not only fundamental to making anything in your life lasting and whatever, but they're also timeless. Like, if you know these things, you are equipped to deal with these kind of, at a minimum, equipped to deal with the changes that are coming, because there is this false impression that people have that success is instant. It's put a post up and you're done. And there are people, like you said, who are hawking that out there and selling people and fooling them into that, and realizing that No, it's if there is a negative side to the to having lost gatekeepers, which I'm not a proponent of the old gatekeeper system, but at least there was some method of keeping a lot of the people who are like um, preying on people who don't know any better about the industry or things out of the way. But at the end of the day, it's like companies like yours and mine who are so focused on community. There is plenty of hopelessness and darkness to go around right now, and we are these little points of
Yeah.
light that help people find their way and find new perspectives and find ways of looking at the world that they didn't
Yeah.
realize because they've been sold this crap, right? About how this is. It's like I
Yes.
don't think I
Yeah.
cannot imagine. I tell my own kids, I was like, I don't even know. I can't imagine what I would have turned out had I had TikTok and all this stuff. What would have happened to me? I'm way pre TikTok era, and the stuff that it just feeds into you. I these core things that we were talking about, these core disciplines and values, once you
Yeah.
understand them, you can do anything. You can do really anything,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever it is. It applies to any business you're going after or your career,
That's
right?
right.
Because your career
That's
itself
right.
is that way too. So, I'm just,
Mhm.
I just dig you so much, man, and everything that you guys are doing. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on here and share some of your thoughts and the history of Saturday AM and everything you're doing. I just deeply appreciate it. I know how busy you are. So
Like I said, I appreciate the invite so much. Again, any chance I have to have an honest conversation about the business and about the challenges and the fun things, it's always a joy because it's just like I said, this industry is right now, entertainment is so dominated by TikTok and
mhm.
whatever, and the discourse therefore then gets really lessened into the particulars of it because it's a complicated thing. And so any chance you have to just talk to people, especially, our ages, just to have just a honest older person conversation is always good. I think young people can appreciate that. But yeah, I would just you made a statement earlier. I'll just leave with one last thing as well, which is the other advice I would give is a to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and I think
Mhm.
that oftentimes a lot of young people will be so hung up on creating, the next Naruto, the next Dragon Ball. And again, this is not Japan. This is
Mhm.
not Japan. Just you are not gonna create something and all of a sudden it's gonna lead to a 72 book deal, a 72 volume book deal. Like this is not Japan, man. That is not gonna happen. You'll get maybe you get a piece of work and you get commissioned to do another piece of work, and then maybe that turns into a graphic novel. And then maybe that graphic novel gets to be volume 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, maybe 7. But those are all really hard, and therefore it's like that. While that might be your perfect vision of creating content, if you just can get a deal or you just can get something out there people can see and they like it and they start to know you by, those are good things. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Just continue building with good stuff, and great things will happen. But if you just continue to shoot for the top without any concern as to the process, as to the realities of the business, you'll be disappointed. You'll be, you know, argumentative with people that you shouldn't be, and it just ends up leading to just unhappiness when it doesn't have to be. This is such a beautiful creative business that is hard, but there's no need to make it a creative business that is impossible. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again, man. Good luck with everything. I can't wait to hear more, and I'd love to do more stuff with you. So, good luck with everything. We'll let you get back to all the business you've got, and we'll talk soon. So, and to everyone
Yeah.
else,
What
thank
one
you.
last thing,
Oh
folks?
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say just one last thing. People, please check us out. You can go to our website.
Oh
We've got a
right,
sale
yeah.
going on in our
Oh
store right now.
yeah, yeah. Tell them. So
No, it's all good.
we're actually gonna
I was
put it
just
in
thinking
the
about myself. I was like, I got to.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I got so wrapped up. It'll also be in the description of this video. We'll have all the links, but go ahead, let them know where the best place is to go.
Yeah, just we have so there are three places I would just ask for folks to kindly to check out if you are so inclined. Our website, of course, has all of our information on it. You can go to www.saturday-am.com. You can learn about our series, our creators. You can even buy content and books and apparel at our website. The second one is our app. You can find our app also on our website, but you can go to Apple or Google and download our app. It's called Saturday M Global Comics. We have content on there for free. It's worth checking out. We upload new content to it every month, so it's definitely worth checking out. And then last but not least, our video game. We have a 2v2 game, first of its kind in terms of being a manga brand that's outside of Japan and Asia in general, featuring 14 of our most popular characters and done in the art style of each of the artists who are creating them, create them regularly. So really excited about it. Called Saturday M Battle Manga. You can currently go wishlist the game on Steam, and we have some big announcements coming soon. In fact, I think our next trailer for the game is coming in the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, feel free to go wishlist that on Steam, and we appreciate it. And that's
all right. You guys got a lot of homework to do. So go download, go see everything that's going on, go follow everything. So, all right, man. Well, thanks so much. And thanks to you to everyone for joining. Hope you guys had a great time. Go, remember to head off into the Discord server. We've got our virtual artist alley there. Saturday AM is in there as well. So you want to go make sure and drop by there. And yeah, everyone have a great Friday afternoon. Oh, and also tonight, I think is the final chapter of the actual play of the carnival. So you don't want to miss that on Discord. Everyone take care. Take care, Frederick. We'll talk later.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, Chris. Thanks, man.
Bye.